Welcome to our podcast, Women Need to Do Better. And this is where we do that without judgment, without the pressure. Pure, honest conversations about what life really looks like behind the closed doors. Hello, everybody. I am your host, Shelly Kirshenman. And if you're new to me, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're a regular, I appreciate you tuning in again. The last episode of Trish, that was episode 27. If you want to go back and check it out, please do. But she was stressed out because she is a career mom, a wife. She's juggling all the things. She had a paper due, and we kind of left her at that kitchen counter the 4 hours that she was given to get that paper done. But as we all know, being given the time, but being free to use the time, those are two totally different things. So with that paper that she had due, she had taken 2 nights, Saturday night and Sunday night, 2 nights to get it done while everybody else was sleeping in a dark house other than the light from the kitchen and her laptop screen glowing quietly. She worked on that until she just couldn't see straight. Probably about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think is what she told me. But she got it done on time, right? She had just squeaked it by right when it was due. So there was like absolutely no time for anything to go wrong. But for what it's worth, she did get a good grade on it. And she even got some good comments from her professor. And her husband, Scott, was so proud of her. And that made her both happy and frustrated. And that constant rushing around and rearranging her priorities, when we were talking about that, she said, that is what keeps her labeled as, she gets teased. She's always late. She's always behind. Is she, are you going to make it? And the part that nobody really recognizes is her constant rearranging that cost her those 2 nights to try to get that paper done. That should have been done 4 hours. Nobody saw the sleep that she missed because from the outside, her paper was still turned in on time. And there's no proof of what it cost her to stay afloat. And that's the part we always talk about, is the thing that nobody sees. Because turning in that paper on time, it doesn't look any different if she had it done way in advance versus just squeaking it by minutes to spare. And, when we were talking, Trish was thinking about that paper. And in our sessions, we were talking about how long does she have left for school? Because that takes up a big chunk of not just her time, but mental time, mental capacity as well. And she was just thinking about, man, once I get done with school, that's going to free up some wiggle room in my life so that I can actually start living my life instead of feeling like I'm just going through the motions. Does it ever feel like that? Like you're just going through motions because you've got so much on your plate and you're just kind of swinging from one project to the other or just one deadline to another. And there's got to be an answer, right? Something better than just scheduling better, more time, management of your time. And so that's what got us into talking about her asking for help. And you got to pick one thing because she's been doing this for so long that it's just, she's become the default person. Nobody really recognizes all the behind the scenes that it takes to run her household on top of a full career and full-time school and, all the things that we do. So we figured out, let's have her start with something on a smaller scale, right? She's not just going to hand over everything because it'd be hard for both her and Scott. If Scott's not used to doing it, there's got to be that learning curve. And if she hasn't handed it over, the learning curve for her is learning to ask for help, give up a little bit of control, and trust that it's going to get done. Those are not easy feats. Definitely not. So here's what she did. She trialed it out. Okay. And this is not just a one-time, okay, I'm going to ask him to do this one thing and then that's it. it has to be a little bit bigger than that. So we talked about something that is going to help her so that way she can not have her time so divided, but something that isn't so heavy that if he drops the ball, it's going to cause her even more headaches and stress. So we landed on the idea of the groceries. She picked groceries, low stakes, right? Grocery list. She can even give him the list. Pick a store. I don't know about you, but for her, for me, for a lot of other women, we don't get to go to just one store for groceries. It's this store and that store. It depends on what you're getting. And if you have more than one account, then it's okay. What card are you going to use? All the stuff, all the stuff. But it doesn't have to be that hard. So simplify it. That's what she did. She trialed it out, not just once, but a whole month. She wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be just a one-time ask, because if it didn't turn out the way they expected, he expected, she expected, however you want to say it, then it wasn't going to be excused away with, well, he had something going on that week, and so that doesn't really count. Whether it was he wasn't feeling good, there was, excess stress at work, it was insert excuse here, whatever was going on. So she committed to a month. Fair enough, right? Gives her enough time, gives him enough time trialing it out. So the first week, she gave Scott the list of groceries that she needed, the one store to go get most of those things at, because that's where she would have gone to, and, let him know what account to use. So, and he did it with no complaints. In fact, it's funny. She told me he was actually happy to help. He even told her that he would have been willing to do this a long time ago, but she's never asked him. And maybe now she'll start speaking up and asking for help so he can help her. And so he went shopping, and he did great. He knows what store, he's very familiar with the neighborhood they live in. So he went to the store with the list, got the groceries, and he came back home, and he did great. He had the treats that the kids like. He had the rotisserie chicken, and he had no idea he forgot every single ingredient for the 3 dinners on the meal plan for that week. It was the first time, though, okay? And she committed to not complaining, just seeing how it lands. So she ended up having to go out later to get all the groceries that he missed when the kids were down for the night. So she chalked that one up to the first attempt. Okay, and that's fair. We're not going to expect everything to go perfect and smooth the first time we ask for help. So, again, she asked him for the second week, go do the grocery shopping. And, like I said, she had committed to doing this for a whole month. So that way there's not going to be any excuses. But because of what happened the first week, the second week when they were trying it again, she said, maybe, and again, she's trying not to control things. She's trying to let him handle it, let it go, trust him. But she asked him, okay, can I see the list, and let me just go through it just to make sure that there's nothing on the list that, could be missed. And she starred the things that absolutely needed to be purchased, because that was built into the plan for the week. So that way, when we plan, our weeks go easier. We all know this. And she, bless Trish, she was definitely determined not to give up. And she knows it's not easy for Scott as much as it's not easy for her, because he's never done this before. And she's used to taking care of it. So arguably it's easier for her because she knows the stores, she knows the layout, she has her path. And when she goes through the store, part of the shopping experience for her is noticing things that, oh, shoot, she gets triggered that, I saw that. That's right. I don't think we have enough of that. We're going to be running out of that soon. Pops that into the cart. It's not on the list. That wasn't an expectation of Scott at all. But she also gets ideas for, oh gosh, you know what? That would be a great meal idea. When you see foods in the store, sometimes it gets ideas flowing, right? You're like, oh shoot, we haven't made that for a while. I forgot that that's one of the kids' favorite meals, or that's one of Scott's favorite meals, whatever it is. But we get ideas from walking around the grocery store, and we'll see a sale that's on, we'll see something that is on display, whatever it is. But when she had asked him week 2 to just take a look at the list, she noticed he was a little irritated, kind of felt like, she was kind of getting back control, or I don't know. He was noticeably annoyed, is what she told me. So, anyways, he went week 2, and when he got back, well, there was things forgotten again. It was the same outcome. So, she is trying to learn to trust him, but when you have the same outcome, just different gaps, it's kind of the same pattern. And then she mentioned the list. Somehow it was still her fault. So, and she's trying not to let this get back into that, well, you know what, just let her do it, because that was the whole point of him doing it, is to lighten her load, to share the responsibilities. So when she got to week number 3, she was like, okay. She gently asked, hey, can we look at the list together before you go? I think we're running low on some things. I just want to make sure everything that we need is on the list. Because she heard from someone, won't tell you who, that sometimes the words we use will be fueling some way that we feel about ourselves, and it'll trigger us. So there are certain things, like when we use negative things, like, I want to make sure you don't forget something, or I want to make sure something's not left off the list. So just subtle shifts in what you say. So she said, we're running low. I think it was, we're running low on some things. So I want to make sure we have everything on the list, instead of, let me make sure nothing's missing from the list. So it's really slight shifts in the words that we use. Instead of saying not, we just use the positive of it. Anyhow, she asked him that. And the ask to just make sure that the list was complete, wasn't missing anything, without saying wasn't, just making sure everything is on the list, it turned into her attacking him. And week 3 was a bust, which I felt really bad, because, I mean, 2 weeks, and that's more than what she's gotten before. She got the help for the 2 weeks. But the problem was, Scott didn't hear, can we look at the list together? Or let me make sure everything is on it. What he heard was, you did it wrong. You always forget things. You are unreliable. And the sad part, and this is kind of where Trish was stuck, is that she could almost push play on a recording, because it's the same old song and dance. It ends up, he gets defensive. And week 2 was kind of the poke when she asked to see the list. But by week 3, it was, in his mind, a full-on attack. And when they got into that conversation, Trish shared with me that it doesn't ever stay about the groceries. So it became about all these other things, about how she always finds a way to criticize him, and she doesn't seem to be happy with any of the help he gives, and how he's subpar. And, it's all the things that he's built up in his head that don't allow her to really address it. It really was just about, she needed the help, so that way, if he could take grocery shopping off of her list, she had the time to do other things. Grocery shopping, she didn't feel was that big of an ask, because we had talked about something that was a little low stakes, right? So that way she could be comfortable letting go of that control, not having to do everything. And maybe if he had bought the store brand instead of the name brand that she asked for, like those are things that you can work with. But she got the help for the 2 weeks. The second week was the little poke where he felt like, she wasn't appreciating his help. And then by week 3, he felt attacked. He felt he was doing nothing right by her. And that is a conversation a lot of men will have, is that they would help their wives out more, but they won't let go of the control. And they try to help, but it has to be done her way. And she was very aware of that. And she was trying to make it where he could do it his way. I mean, he goes grocery shopping. Here's the things we need. How can you let go of the control any more than that, other than him making the list? But he didn't want to do that. So her trying to make sure that she could get the items that she needed without having to either go behind his back or go again, because she's kind of in a lose-lose situation. If she goes back to the grocery store that he just came from, whether it's that night, whether it's the next day, whatever, that she needs those items on the list for that week, he is going to feel like he's failed. And however he interprets that, for her and where they were at this time of the story, was it was her fault. And she's highlighting all his shortcomings. And so most of what Scott was reacting to wasn't her at all. So there was really nothing that she could do to make it better other than just to listen. And their arguments of, you always do this, you always find something wrong with what I do, that doesn't help. And in fact, I think she even said one of the things that stung to her the most is when he was telling her, this is exactly what I mean by you don't communicate, you just blame me for everything. And she goes, I don't know how to not blame him and have a conversation with him. And I get it. I do. Because sometimes if you've been in the roles that you've been playing, and we do this, it becomes our default. We do it because that's why we don't ask for help. We don't want the argument. We don't want the confrontation, the conflict. We try to work it out. We try to let go of the control. We try to give it to them and say, hey, okay, prove to me, or I guess prove to me isn't really the nicest way to say it, but gain my trust. Show me that you can be my partner. Help me out, right? And she gets it, because anytime in the past, like I said, she could press play. Anytime that she has tried to let him help her, and she's recognized her own faults. Sometimes, she does try to control certain things, which I get. When they do it a certain way, sometimes their way makes it harder for us, but she gets where he's coming from. She has been able to recognize what it is that he's actually saying. It's not him really actually blaming her. And this is stuff that it takes some reflection. It wasn't about her at all. It's really about him, some old version of him not quite measuring up to somebody that is in his past. We all do it. We carry on, or we carry with us these versions of our old, maybe our old child self, maybe our young adult self, something that has happened to us in the past where we have felt that we were not adequate. And Trish can see it unfolding in real time. But if you have a partner like that, where once they've triggered that memory, they're locked in, and you just have to let the course take its, or let that take its course. And so She's tried different ways on getting him to recognize what he's saying and try to bring the conversation back into, okay, this was really just about the grocery list. This isn't about right or wrong. This is really just about the things that we needed for the week. And if you didn't get those items, that's fine. But do you have a workaround? Do you have a plan for the meal then? Because we don't have those things. And it's hard because she doesn't want to push him. And it's not that she's scared of him or anything like that. It's just the conversations, she feels like she's in a catch-22. They do talk. They have a great way to talk. She knows exactly how it's going to go down. He'll talk. He always talks. And when he's like that, when he's in that mindset, he vents everything, every frustration, every old wound. And this grocery list, apparently for her, touched on that. She saw that. And so Trish listened. She listened to every word of it, up one side and down the other. And when he was finally done and ready to just kind of shut down because he's spent, he's expelled all his energy and he's just got nothing left to hear her side of it. And he usually says, okay, we've talked about this enough, after he's been going on and on. And he's tired of talking about it. And it's almost funny because Trish hasn't gotten a single word in about her side of it. Not one. And she knows it. So for her, the one month experiment turned into 2 weeks, and the grocery list stays wrong and the conversation stays unresolved. And there's poor Trish. She walks away with the tension and the frustration and the understanding that, once again, exactly what she already knew, Scott has to be right and he has to be heard. And she is trying to figure out a way to get on the same page with him so that they can at least have a foundation or a starting point to where maybe she could vent first and then he will listen, so that she gets that opportunity to let him see her side of it, and then she'll let him talk. But we all know that relationships aren't fair. In fact, spoiler alert, they're never fair. Relationships actually are more like a seesaw. There's always going to be an uneven distribution of the load. And usually it's going to be whoever has the ability to take on more at that time. And it shouldn't just be one-sided. But some relationships end up where the load that falls on one partner and not the other isn't just that grocery list. It's not just the birthday gifts. It's not the school schedule or the doctor's appointments or the remembering all the things of who likes what and eats what and blah, 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 blah. It's all those things plus. It's all those things plus recognizing the things that your partner needs, his emotional weathering system, all those things that affect how he feels. And she ends up, like a lot of us, just kind of checking the weather and then adjusting our own needs or our own priorities around what we're able to do based on how he sets the tone, how he sets the mood of the house, and carrying his stuff and hers at the same time. You know, we excuse it away. We say we're keeping the pace. We say that we're managing the house. And that is a huge load of managing. I don't know how many of you out there listening knows how Trish feels. I've worked with so many women that live that. And you've tried so many things, right? You've tried, but you still end up in the same place, at odds with your partner. And it feels like you're stuck in this vicious loop that just can't change. In fact, in our session, Trish and I talked about, well, she brought up the idea, I wish I could just like videotape him And then later on, when he's not in his funk and he's not in his feelings, play it for him. And I could benefit from that too, just watching like a third party from the outside watching, right? Like how you watch sitcoms and you notice things when you're watching sitcoms, the body language, the tones, the inflections, and the way that the people react to each other when it's on a video. And she was saying, gosh, if I could just record us, then maybe I could see if I'm doing something that I'm not noticing that is offensive to him or might trigger that kind of reaction. Maybe he can start seeing too how he's talking to me, or listen to the way that he starts off with a grocery list and then all of a sudden it becomes that I'm just overbearing and I need to communicate better, or I just need to stop blaming him. And how would that change? How do we change that? And so when we were talking in that session, I mean, obviously recording someone, that's so invasive. And I would never recommend that. I mean, if you do that, kudos to you. And I hope it helps. But I've seen that go wrong in so many different ways. But we talked about the direction that she wanted to go. And we created something for her to try. And it's a step for how she can get Scott to see for himself the way that she sees him in that moment. And it's not a fix. It is a step. And that's what it starts with. It starts with the decision and then the action to implement one thing. So when we talk about Trish next time, we'll tell you what that first step was and how it actually worked out. And if these women's stories that I bring to you inspire you, you can relate to them, or you know someone who can, please share them with them. Let's build this community. Like the episode, subscribe to my podcast, leave me a comment. I reply to all of them because women do better when we lift each other up. So let's build this community and support each other. Until next week, take care of each other and take care of yourself. And don't forget your coffee. Love and aloha. I'll see you next time.